Hey boo, and welcome home to Vrievolution Tarot. So today we are doing the first video in the North Node series, which is going to be about the North Node in Aries, which is the North Node in the first house. Now this could be the North Node in the sign Aries in your birth chart, or this could be the North Node within the first house of your chart. So let's dive into it, shall we? Okay, so overview. Attributes to develop for Aries North Node or North Node in the first house. Work in these areas can help uncover hidden gifts and talents. The first quality is independence. Second quality is self-awareness. Third quality is trusting one's impulses. Fourth quality is courage. Fifth quality is constructive self-interest. Sixth quality is moderation in giving. Seventh quality is self-nurturance. Tendencies to leave behind. Working to reduce the influence of these tendencies can help make life easier and more enjoyable for you. First, seeing oneself through others' eyes. Second is debilitating selflessness. Third, being Mr. or Miss Nice. Fourth, obsessive attachment to fairness and justice. Fifth, codependence, attachment to external harmony. Sixth, tit for tat mentality. Achilles heel or trap to avoid the bottom line. The Achilles heel Aries North Node people need to be aware of is a preoccupation with justice. My survival is dependent on everyone playing fair with me. This thought should signal that they are on shaky ground. These folks are very giving by nature, yet their need for justice and absolute fairness is a bottomless pit. They can start playing fair with themselves by not giving beyond a point that feels comfortable, even if they know that nothing will be reciprocated. The trap that Aries North Node people need to avoid is an unending search for an ideal, committed partnership. If only I can find the perfect partner, I'll feel complete within myself. The feeling of completeness they seek can only be achieved individually. It will not be the byproduct of a relationship, no matter how wonderful the partner. The bottom line is that they will never gain enough approval from others to have permission to be themselves. At some point, they must take the risk and pursue activities that are meaningful to themselves. The irony is that once Aries North Node go in their own direction, the appropriate people will be drawn into their life to support them. What these people really want. What Aries North Node people really want is to experience happiness, harmony, fairness, and support with one partner whom they love. To achieve this, they need to be their own partner first. By getting to know themselves, they begin to do the things that bring them joy and increase their level of self-nurturing so they feel strong, confident, and supported. As they treat themselves more fairly, they will feel the sense of balance and justice they seek. Only at this point can they establish a healthy partnership wherein two individuals share equally with each other without feeling debilitated. Talents or profession. These people need to be able to do their thing according to their own impulses without being limited by the input of others. They are the leaders, the innovators, the pioneers. They need a profession that allows them the independence to follow their own instincts. They are successful in professions that require initiative and independent action, as surgeons, technicians, or entrepreneurs, for example. From past lives, they have the gift of being able to see the other person's point of view and negotiate diplomatically to ensure fairness. They can use this innate ability to further their own success. However, in professions that emphasize mediating as a final goal, they are generally not as energized as when they use their negotiating talents to reach their own independent goals. So here are some healing affirmations specific to Aries North Node or North Node in the first house. Number 1. When I trust myself and follow my impulses, everyone wins. Number 2. Before I can support others, I have to learn how to nurture myself. Number 3. I can help others best by truly being myself. Number 4. It's okay not to be nice all the time. Number 5. A sense of balance and strength comes from being fair with myself. Personality and past lives of this North Node. Aries North Node people have had many past lives of supporting others, and they have a natural talent for it. In past incarnations, they were housewives, secretaries, counselors, and assistants. They were the people behind the scenes who gave others energy and support. This made the others bigger and stronger because the natives infused all their own identity, power, and positive energy in supporting them. Aries North Node people also have had a lot of householder lifetimes and are accustomed to merging their energy with those in their immediate environment. To support others successfully, they developed tremendous awareness and sensitivity. Their tools were love, reassurance, gentle words of encouragement, and confidence that the other person would emerge victorious in any situation. Their focus was the other person. Whenever they saw their partner lacking confidence or needing support, they stepped right in to help. These folks never had to be asked. They are sensitive to others' needs and go out of their way to be accommodating. They have developed an incredibly loving and generous spirit. They are accustomed to giving, to being a team player, and to supporting others without thoughts of self. Although they were very giving in past lives, they also had an ulterior motive. They were part of a team, and if their partner did well, it also ensured their own survival. By keeping the partner's mood harmonious, Aries North Nodes ensured that the partner would be kindly disposed and generous towards them. So they gave up paying attention to their own needs in order to devote full attention to the partner. Everything centered around keeping the partner strong and contented. In past lives, this system worked very well. But the present incarnation is not set up to work this way. In the process of supporting others, these folks extinguished their own identity. In this incarnation, their destiny is now to get in touch with the strength and power of their own vibration. This is why every time they rely on a partner to come through for them without asking directly for help, they end up feeling disappointed. Actually, this is to their advantage because depending on another prevents them from experiencing their ability to survive under their own power. So now when they sacrifice their own identity to make another strong, they lose. The rewards they expect don't come back. It's time to rediscover themselves. Lack of identity. Aries North Node people have spent so many incarnations supporting the identity of others that in this incarnation they have no sense of who they are. On an energetic level, they are missing the insulation of a sense of identity. When a baby is born, there is a band in its aura called identity, and people in other nodal groups have this. It acts as a shield against the strong energy fields of others. Because of it, people can interact intensely without damaging one another. For example, if Bill meets Sue on the street, he may say, "Hello, Sue," and have a tremendous amount of energy behind it. Sue responds in kind. They interact enthusiastically and then they walk away without either having been changed. But if Bill meets an Aries North Node person and with the same amount of energy says, "Hello, Jim," Jim is blown over. He feels overwhelmed by all that energy. Owing to the weakness of the identity band in Aries North Node aura, these natives are very sensitive to others and are easily affected by others' moods and ideas, and they need to remember to do things to fortify their self-awareness. These folks even tend to take on the identities of others. Generally, they pick up accents easily and unconsciously duplicate other people's mannerisms, even if they are only around them for a short time. Harmony is so important to them that they try to be all things to all people. One byproduct of their receptivity to others is the tremendous love that is easily sparked within them. Since their own identity is weak, they readily feel a sense of oneness when they connect with others. In this incarnation, Aries North Node people face the challenge of strengthening their sense of identity. Because they have no preconceived idea of self, they are open to discovering what is real and natural within themselves. It's an innocent process. Their natural impulses validate their identity, and their identity is strengthened through their actions. These folks need a lot of time alone to get to know themselves. They need a specific time each day when they can talk with themselves. Their first challenge is to find out who they are in their own right. Then they can learn how to maintain their boundaries with others. This process happens gradually. Self-discovery cannot be rushed, but Aries North Node people make progress when they resolve to pay more attention to themselves. A loving spirit. Aries North Node people have a tremendous amount of love stored up from past lives. They know about relationships and they have received much appreciation and love in return for the help they gave others. Thus, they came into this incarnation feeling loved by others. All that love shines through them and is passed on to almost everyone they meet. They have an ability to see not just the rough edges in other people, but the loving qualities too. They perceive who others really are and they celebrate that truth. In that state, they feel totally high because they are fully appreciating and celebrating the glory, strength, energy, light, and life in the other person, and it makes them feel incredibly loving. Their challenge in this life is to begin to see the same beauty in themselves. Although these folks are open and loving, if others violate their space, they become angry. Then, when their not so loving part begins to emerge, they feel guilty. Yet this dark side is part of the human experience. They are discovering themselves and learning to integrate both sides of their energy. Their loving energy becomes the backdrop for the personality and mood changes that happens to all of us. Their challenge is to remain centered in themselves. Aries North Node's motive of wanting to give is correct. But if they are trying to give when they feel drained at best, they are only creating a superficial harmony. Every time they become too outwardly focused, appreciating others and not valuing themselves, the demons within emerge to bring them back in touch with themselves. They don't want to be with people when their dark side is showing. It doesn't reflect the supportive, loving person they feel they should be, so they tend to feel guilty and go off by themselves. Actually, when the dark within them arises, it's a good sign. It is neglected part of themselves demanding attention. When they turn within and begin consciously loving themselves, noticing their own beauty and taking care of themselves, the demons melt away. Thus, Aries North Node people need to regularly take time to focus on themselves and see what they need to do to support themselves. Then, they will be able to interact with others from a place of integral strength and harmony. Hypersensitivity, harmony versus self-sacrifice. Having spent many past incarnations being the support system for others, Aries North Node people have developed a constant openness to others' identities. They intentionally remained aware of the other person and could sense the slightest unhappiness or disharmony in that person's mood. When they focused on keeping the partner's mood happy, they shared in that mood and remained happy themselves. Although this worked well in past lives, in this incarnation another person's happiness is not enough to evoke true happiness in these folks. They don't have enough personal identity left in their battery to hold the charge from the other person. To be deeply happy in this lifetime, they must focus on developing their own identity and recharging their own battery. These folks tend to pacify others, saying whatever is necessary to keep the peace. When they do this, they think they are being nice and serving others, but it's only a temporary solution. It postpones a more permanent resolution that would promote a solid relationship based on the identity and integrity of both individuals. Aries North Node people are so sensitive to the atmosphere surrounding others that they tend to make maintaining a harmonious atmosphere their focus in relationships. They do need harmony in their lives to feel content and happy, but they get into trouble when they allow their personal sense of balance to depend on another person. Then they feel they must manipulate the other person into staying harmonious with them. If you are happy, I am happy. They think that if they balance the other person by filling in where he or she lacks strength, that person should happily reciprocate. They can't understand when others don't do their part to keep the harmony going, and they often feel as though they are the only ones doing their fair share. Maintaining harmony in the relationship can become a full-time job for them. But it's not set up to work that way in this lifetime. In fact, this habit can enslave both partners. The other person loses autonomy and becomes dependent on the Aries North Node to produce harmony, and Aries North Node becomes bound to the role of providing the harmony, regardless of personal cost. Sadly, because of this, relationships can become burdensome for these folks. What does work for them is to pay attention to their relationship with themselves. What activities promote their own feelings of inner harmony? If their balance is off, what should they give to themselves in order to regain their inner harmony? These folks want to be Mr. or Miss Nice, and nice people don't upset other people. This peace at any price syndrome may lead to self-negation, which is a form of dishonesty. Their motive is one of love, but love without honesty leads to resentment. I literally have goosebumps right now, guys, like literally right now. Wow, okay. Aries North Node people have spent so many incarnations helping others obtain their desires that they often equate supporting others with doing what the other person wants. So they sacrifice what they need to be happy in order to fill the other person's needs. In this incarnation, they are learning to reevaluate what support actually is. It is not supportive to give more than one has to give. These natives love the energy of giving to others, but if they give beyond the point of feeling comfortable, they are not really supporting the other person. If they continue to call on their inner reserves of energy, they wear out their battery and nobody wins. These folks must trust themselves. When they feel an inner resistance to giving, it is a signal to pull back and begin taking care of themselves. It does not work for them to be unaware of their separate identity. When they feed energy into the force field of the relationship, rather than to the other person as a separate entity, they create only temporary harmony at best. This is because they are feeding energy into something that's not really there. A relationship doesn't exist in physical reality. It's an energy connection between two people, and the energy constantly fluctuates as the two people have different experiences and changing moods. When the relationship is harmonious, it is the result of both partners being strong and peaceful within themselves. Aries North Node lose when they try to constantly prop the other person up through manipulating the energy in the relationship. However, when they encourage independence and individuality in their relationships, dealing directly with the other person and supporting him or her in being strong and separate, they win. Because the other person will give back in the same way, supporting Aries North Node's independence and individuality. Participating versus hiding. Aries North Node people have such a history of being the support person that they are instinctively open to others' moods. But in this incarnation, it's a habit that can be extremely draining. They may appear to have a boundary between themselves and the other person, but it's a very thin line. In actuality, they are merged with the other person's energy field in a very codependent way. Sometimes, recognizing that they end up feeling drained, these folks avoid participation. They seem to be involved, but on an energy level, remain inside themselves. They are still saying hello and being polite, but they are really not connected with the energy. However, when they remain totally outside the dynamics of the interaction, afterwards they end up on the other extreme and become overly excited, bouncing off the walls with excess energy. For these folks, being drained and being overly excited are two sides of the same coin, not dealing with what's actually happening in the moment. They have either given too much of themselves and feel drained, or given too little and absorbed others' energy, so that they feel overcharged. Both reactions are a byproduct of not being present or grounded in their bodies and responding to the situation moment by moment as a separate person. The balance lies in being consciously aware of others' energy without being consumed by it. Aries North Nodes need to stay connected to their own power and be in touch with what they can comfortably contribute. The idea is to share their talents freely, to be of service, and to give from the heart without trying to be more or less than they actually are. Aries North Node people often try to work within the dynamic of the merged energy field, theirs and their other person's. They plug into the other's energy and add whatever ingredient is needed to keep things harmonious. And they feel good about doing this. It's an expression of their love. But another motive may be that they want to blend their energy with others to avoid standing out as an individual. Then they can participate in the flow of things without being noticed. They have a fear of being acknowledged, which is in fact the fear of acknowledging themselves. Because they are so sensitive and vulnerable, they fear that being acknowledged could be overwhelming. There could be a joy in having their positive aspects reflected back to them, but they fear having the negative reflected back as well. They don't want to face their demons as a result of another's feedback. Maybe they won't be liked. Maybe the other person, in order to protect himself from dealing with his own demons, will lash out at them. They have a lot of concerns about the possible repercussions of being themselves, so they would rather just go along and not really be seen as an individual. However, concerns about how others will see them are a factor only when Aries North Node people seek to see themselves through others' eyes. In past lives, it was a positive thing to see themselves through their partner's eyes, as it showed them how to adjust their behavior to more effectively support the other person. However, through many lifetimes of overuse, their habit of fitting in has extinguished their own identity. In this incarnation, it is not to their advantage to see themselves through others' eyes, as this inhibits their ability to build their own sense of self. Indecision, vacillation. When these folks make up their mind to go in a given direction, it's sometimes difficult for them to move in a straight line. Part of them may question whether or not it's what they really want, and then they consider all the other factors that might be involved. It may take them a long time to decide which direction they want to take. The process goes something like this. They make a decision and tell all their friends about it, and then they have doubts. For example, they may decide, I want to write adventure novels. Then they start thinking, I also like other kinds of books. Then they try to embrace one idea and are able to feel that this is really right. But somewhere down the line, they say, no, I don't feel quite right about it. And then they are back in indecision. When Aries North Node people do make a decision, they have no problem justifying it. They can find ways to make any decision right or wrong. However, this mechanism can actually deflect them from true knowledge of where they stand. For example, when a decision arises, they have an instinctive response, but they think, well, I want to be fair about this, so I'll look at it from the opposite point of view. This causes them to become confused and lose sight of what they want. In this lifetime, Aries North Node people are developing single-mindedness. Rather than weigh everything before making a choice, they are learning the value of following their initial impulse, just to see where it goes. It's fine for them to make a decision based on their spontaneous sense of inner excitement, and then put the full force of their intellect into implementing it. It's an experiment. Later on, if they lose a feeling of rightness about it and something else excites them, they can responsibly tie up the loose ends and go on to the next thing. This is a lifetime of new beginnings for them, so it's natural that many decisions they make will be subject to change. Actually, this incarnation is not set up to be one of decision making, which usually implies considering 2 points of view and then finding a compromise. Rather than be the referee in this lifetime, these natives are supposed to be one of the points of view. That is why it is in their best interest to form the habit of noticing their first impulses, which will guide them to correct decisions. Then the vitality, confidence, and joy will come back into their lives, and it will be a blessing for everyone. A major obstacle to the single-mindedness of Aries North Node people is that they can appreciate the beauty in all their choices. Owing to past incarnations of being deeply involved with others' lives, they are accustomed to appreciating the beauty in everything outside of themselves. They aren't in touch with having favorites of anything, because they don't know what their own tastes and preferences are. They have a tough time picking out one thing and saying, this is it. What they can do is make time to visualize different things inside themselves and learn to feel what their preferences are. For example, if asked what their favorite color is, they may waver, but if they go off by themselves, visualize the colors inside them, and tune in to how they resonate with each one, they will discover their preference. When these folks have to make a decision, they often feel what the right choice is. but sometimes they are forced to decide before they have gotten in touch with that intuitive impulse. Again, visualization can help. They can take a few moments and visualize themselves following one option to see how they feel about it in their physical body. Then they can visualize following the other option and see how they feel about that. If it's an important matter and they don't have an immediate impulsive response, it's fine to take as much time as they need to visualize so they can make the right choice. Risking others' judgment. If Aries North Node people allow others to be part of their decision-making process, they lose touch with themselves and are dissatisfied no matter how the situation turns out. In past lives, their decisions involved the team. They had to consult the other person so the outcome would work for the partnership. But in this lifetime, they want to develop their own identity, so it's better to ask themselves, how do I feel about this decision? When they tell another person their decisions, they become vulnerable to that person's approval. And since they are so sensitive, if the other person doesn't agree, then they start thinking, maybe I didn't make the right decision. So it is better for them to keep decisions to themselves, knowing that their decisions will change as they themselves change and grow. Because Aries North Node people are influenced by what they think other people think, especially if it's someone that they respect, they have a tendency to trust others' judgment above their own instincts. But in this lifetime, they are learning to take a stand for their own judgment, which has less to do with being right than with discovering more about themselves. These folks fear others will judge them harshly if they make a decision that isn't based on sound logic. They see others making decisions based on logic, so if they make an impulsive decision, they think it is not valid. However, for them it's correct to follow impulse, whereas a member of another nodal group may be better off following logic. For Aries North Nodes, decisions based on their first impulse generally work out best. Then they can use logic to find the way to implement the decisions. If Aries North Node people are facing a decision and no initial impulse arises within them, it's okay not to make a decision. It may be a sign that it is not the time for them to make a decision, or that they really don't have a preference. Then it's fine to just say, I don't know. These natives always feel more comfortable responding to a situation when another point of view has already been put on the table. Then they can either agree or disagree with that opinion. It's scary for them to offer their opinion first, but it's their speciality in this incarnation to offer innovative ideas seemingly out of nowhere. Aries North Node people are great at supporting another's decision, but in this lifetime they need to impulsively feel where they want to go, put their idea on the table and support it 100%. In this lifetime they are the trailblazers. Needs a sense of identity. Owing to so many incarnations in which they sacrifice their own identity for the sake of supporting others, Aries North Node people enter this lifetime without an inborn sense of identity. Rediscovering and re-establishing a true sense of self is now a primary need. Especially in the early years, their entire sense of self is based on how others see them. They may go along with others' definition of who they are or resist it completely. Regardless, it is not their identity, it's a reaction to others' construct of who they are. To begin the path to self-discovery, they need to ask themselves, who am I, apart from others' projections? They will find an answer only by looking inside themselves. Self-awareness. To answer their need for self-awareness, it would be helpful for these folks to begin checking in with themselves on a regular basis. When they are not in touch with themselves, they often end up acting in extremes. With others, they feel they have to be light-bearer, loving, supportive, and self-sacrificing all the time. This represses the part of themselves that cannot possibly be that way all the time, which creates an intense polarity. They are trying to always be loving and supportive because that's the role they played in their past lives. But the extremity of this positive role will also evoke the depths of darkness. If they take a closer look at the darkness, they will see that it's really just their more assertive side, which they haven't allowed themselves to express. It's part of their yang nature, their masculine side. It's polarized because it has been suppressed over so many past lives that it's not integrated with the rest of the personality. So it may come out in a very intense way, which causes Aries North Node to become embarrassed and think, where did that come from? The best resolution is to stay congruent with themselves, stay inside their own energy field and stay in touch with what's going on within them. Then, when they are upset, just spontaneously communicate, "Gosh, for some reason I feel upset about this." Their job is to simply be themselves. When they first experiment with this, they may feel uncomfortable, but they need to trust that since their underlying motive is love, whatever comes out is going to be fundamentally correct. Aries North Node people are learning to take charge, do what they need to do for themselves, and become self-sufficient by following their desires. When they feel an impulse to do something that they know would bring them a sense of satisfaction, they need to follow through with it. Owing to the self-purification accomplished in past lives, they can trust their impulses are not harmful to others and in fact signal the direction to which they need to go. In every area of life, the idea is to operate freely on their first impulse of what action would be best in any situation. Any resistance from the ego should be disregarded. In this way, they maintain a balance with others that is based on authenticity and taking responsibility for themselves. Since these folks are not innately aware of the value of self-sufficiency, they don't realize how much others value it. They may evoke a negative response when they start supporting someone who hasn't asked for their help. They enter the other person's force field and find out what he or she is feeling and thinking. It's fine for them to be aware of others' needs, but they are learning that others have boundaries and that they themselves have boundaries as well. As they learn to respect others' self-sufficiency, they begin to value self-sufficiency for themselves. Aries North Node people tend to be reactionary when they see other people taking care of themselves. They become judgmental and think that others are self-involved, uncaring and selfish. Yet becoming involved with themselves is the very thing these folks need to do. It bothers them when they see it in others because they are not doing it themselves. When they notice selfishness in others, they could use it as a reminder to check in with their own needs. They must begin giving attention to themselves, even if at first go it's a bit extreme. They might begin by allotting 30 to 40 minutes of solitude for themselves every day, no matter what. In a room by themselves with no interference from the outside world, they might have a cup of tea and plan their day, write in their journal, read an inspiring book, or just sit and reflect. The point is, it's their time. During that time, they come first. If they arrange that one thing for themselves, they will be able to give to others all day long without becoming resentful. Paying conscious attention to their breathing also helps. It keeps them in touch with their bodies. When they are with others, they could consciously take a deep breath from time to time to keep themselves inside their own boundaries. Some nodal groups are here to learn about selflessness. But Aries North Nodes already know about selflessness. In this lifetime, they need to learn about selfishness. When they stay in touch with themselves, it works for everyone. It's not logical, but it's practical. When they are being themselves, they are afraid they may hurt others. Whereas being themselves actually helps others on a deeper level than they could have anticipated. But Aries North Nodes have to experiment with being selfish, that is, acting on an idea solely because it gives them a sense of satisfaction, and see how it works out. It's time for them to be responsible for creating their own happiness. Gaining recognition. From past lives, Aries North Node people are accustomed to helping others, supporting others, and carrying others' projects through to completion. So they understand completion energy. However, in this incarnation, their job is to start things. They need to initiate and then let others carry on. If others don't come along to help, then it's fine for them to take sole responsibility. But if others do show up, their job is to allow others to support them and complete things for them so that they can get the ball rolling on the next idea. Sometimes these folks don't want to give their project to others because they fear someone else will get the recognition. They think that if someone else can do it, they are less valuable. They also worry that others will take over and leave them behind. They ask themselves, what do I do then? What is my job? Where is my importance? These reactions are an outgrowth of painful misunderstandings that arise when Aries North Node people commingle their identity with others. To restore their equilibrium, they need to separate themselves so they can clearly see the role they are playing and the roles other people are playing. Then they can feel their worth in discovering the seed idea and let other people bring the idea to fruition. Sometimes their desire for taking credit and gaining recognition becomes so strong that they repel the creative energy of others who might have made the idea better and more profitable. If Aries North Node idea is truly potent, other people will be drawn to support it, and each will bring his or her special talents. If Aries North Node people want their own ideas to become reality, they must acknowledge the individual talents of people they have attracted. By recognizing others' special talents, they can learn to validate others without diminishing themselves. Occasionally, Aries North Node people become so preoccupied with getting the credit that they try to diminish the importance of others' contributions. They want all the credit. Of course, if they want all the credit, they have to take all the responsibility and do all the work. So a lot of their ideas never bear fruit. They need to realize that the most important thing is that their original idea gets recognition, that the seed idea is actualized and spread to the widest possible audience. For that to happen, they need to step out of the way and allow others to help. This is a role reversal for Aries North Nodes. They are the leaders but must allow others to support them and promote their ideas. Since it's their destiny to develop a sense of identity in this lifetime, in a way, their desire for recognition is an attempt to establish a sense of self. However, motive determines the result. If their motive is satisfaction and self-discovery, it is correct and they will win. If their motive is to win recognition from others, then they are still hooked on needing feedback for their sense of self-worth. They need to release the idea that others must recognize them in order for them to recognize themselves and begin directly giving themselves credit. The irony is that when they let go of control and begin recognizing the special talents of those who are helping them, others will be inspired to contribute more and the entire project will be permeated with love. And no one else can do their job. They are discovering the seed ideas for everyone else to build on. Grounding. Aries North Node people need a grounded, structured existence to enable them to share their message of love with the world. The key is in releasing preconceived images of the ways in which love can be expressed. If they limit the way they express themselves to fit their ideas of love, harmonious, gentle, sensitive, caring, giving, compassionate, etc., they are going to miss the boat, because love extends beyond the boundaries of any definitions. If a child is crossing the street in the path of an oncoming car, love may involve grabbing the child's arm and roughly jerking him out of the way. These folks already know that love is the only reality and all else is illusion. Thus, they are learning to trust that their impulses will be the correct expression of love in each situation. When these natives follow the feelings of love and appreciation within themselves, they are being themselves. However, they need to be grounded with the energy so that it's a solid place for them, rather than a state of being that allows them to be pushed around by others. Aries North Node people have a need to experience this love with others. Their challenge is to maintain the integrity of their own well-being. The irony is that being just the way that they are will teach others and evoke feelings of love. To do this, these folks must give up trying to manipulate the other person's view of them and focus instead on being themselves with as much authenticity and integrity as much as possible within each moment. It seems hard at first, and it takes discipline and gently reminding themselves to practice their new focus. But ultimately, they can only come from an honest, selfless place by staying true to themselves. Routines. One thing that helps these folks stay grounded is to be aware of their bodies, allowing their bodies to be a natural boundary that gives them a sense of self. They have a tendency to get into other people's consciousness and lose a sense of their own center. So it's healthy for them to exercise regularly in order to stay more grounded and experience the feeling of balance and harmony they need. Having a routine is also good for them. It is a way to check in with themselves every day. It can be very mundane, making the bed first thing in the morning, brewing coffee, opening the blinds, following a daily exercise routine, meditating, preparing a healthy breakfast, walking the dog. Their tendency is to make the bed one day, the next day partially make the bed, the third day not make it at all, the fourth day make it maybe. Inconsistency and lack of routine undermine their personal strength, so daily consistency in the routine is important. Additionally, they could have a weekly routine or ritual. Once a week, they go to their place of worship or meet the same group of friends for lunch. This will counter their tendency to feel victimized by the randomness of life. It will give them a sense of structure and discipline emanating from within. Rather than floating in and out of other people's energy and consciousness, a routine helps enhance their own identity. However, Aries North Node people despise routine, and for good reason. In past lives, having a routine would make them less available to support others whenever they needed. They didn't develop their own routines, their own life, so they could more easily adjust to others' needs. But in this incarnation, it is to their advantage to develop strong routines and allow others to adapt to them. Also, having their own routines keeps them from falling into other people's routines. The discipline this develops is strengthening for them. It evokes the warrior in them and they feel great about it. Exploring hobbies and talents is also a good way to develop a sense of self. As Aries North Node people spend time on their own interests apart from their primary relationship, their identity blossoms. They need to develop these talents through consistent application, regularly taking the time to do the things that bring a sense of personal satisfaction. For example, if they have artistic talents, they might enroll in an art class. If their talent is music, they might take lessons. If they love dancing, they might take dance lessons and or go dancing regularly with their partner or friends. Self-discipline. Aries North Node sense of being grounded involves self-discipline. Everything that they will work to their advantage requires discipline. Spending time alone on a daily basis, following a few self-chosen routines to make their life strong, and remembering to appreciate themselves. One experiment that will help these folks practice self-discipline and checking in with themselves is to become aware of their eating habits. The idea is to not eat unconsciously out of boredom or to cope with feelings, but to notice when their bodies are hungry and then tune into what their bodies would like to eat. They can use visualization in this. They can imagine having a bite of salad and notice how their bodies feel in response. If they imagine soup in their mouths or a sandwich of fruit or mashed potatoes, they can tell how their bodies will respond. Aries North Node people are so sensitive that when they visualize eating a particular food, their bodies will actually tell them whether that food will make them feel good or sluggish or energetic. Then they can eat depending on what they want to experience at the time. But they are so out of touch with themselves that even this process may seem challenging at first. They may have to work on it, yet when they do it, it's very satisfying and will strengthen their connection with themselves. Self-discipline is not a punishment, it's a practice. It involves strengthening the take charge muscles and doing things on a habitual basis that promote strength, health and well-being. These folks can use self-discipline as a tool to uncover their identity. Consciously practicing self-discipline will evoke the warrior within them in a balanced, harmonious way. On a spiritual level, Aries North Node people are discovering who they really are, allowing a new, innate and natural identity to emerge. However, sometimes they can use their lack of clear identity to their advantage in breaking troublesome habits. One easy way for these folks to practice self-discipline is through simply reinventing their identity. Since they have no preconceived rigid perception of themselves, by changing their identity in their own minds, they can make healthy changes in their lives. For example, I had a client with this nodal position who wasn't a smoker in his youth, but who began smoking heavily 5 years prior to me seeing him. One day he suddenly stopped smoking, with no side effects or withdrawal symptoms. He simply remembered himself as a non-smoker. Establishing one's center. Relationship as center. North Node people of Aries people have had so many lifetimes of identifying with others that they have confused their center, their inner sense of self, with that of their partner. They are hypersensitive to their partner's moods because the other person actually rests at their center. Thus, if the partner is unhappy or dissatisfied, Aries North Node will feel it. He can spend all his time and energy trying to make his partner happy so that his own sense of well-being and contentment remains undisturbed. The problem is that nobody can take on the responsibility for making another person happy. The best one can do is appease the partner, adding an ingredient that will temporarily change her mood. But the partner must then consistently and constantly be appeased in order to be happy and stay happy. And it just isn't set up to work that way for Aries North Nodes in this lifetime. Actually, the growth required of them is best achieved by de emphasizing the idea that relationships are necessary for their survival. They are learning to stand alone and relate to others from a new perspective. However, despite their sensitivity, these folks are often blissfully ignorant about other people, what motivates them, what they are seeking, and what kind of success they would like to achieve. Sometimes they only see the other person and themselves on a superficial level of having immediate needs and desires that are or are not satisfied. They only see deeply enough into the other person's identity to manipulate him into keeping the mood harmonious. This is why people surprise or disappoint Aries North Node. They never saw who the other person really was. In many ways, Aries North Node people are not relating to the other person at all. They are relating to the relationship between themselves and the other person. This does not lead to truly helping their partner or themselves grow. The relationship is not an entity, it cannot grow unless the two individuals grow. Thus, no matter how much time and energy these folks devote to the relationship, it cannot give back to them. So, they are better off examining the needs for autonomy and individual creative expression of both partners. By encouraging and inspiring the other person to achieve results on his or her own, they free both the partner and themselves to evolve as individuals. Another drawback to Aries North Nodes focusing on the relationship rather than on the other individual is that they can't really validate their partner's identity. When Aries North Node people believe in their partner's ability to be self-sufficient, rather than constantly appeasing them, reassuring them, or picking up the slack, they will begin to notice the other person's strength and can encourage him or her to exercise those strengths. This sets the stage for also seeing themselves on a deeper level, noticing their own strengths and pursuing their own impulses for growth. Fairness and self-assertion. Aries North Node people are preoccupied with ideals of justice and fairness. When they think something is unjust, they fly off the handle. They want the world and other people to meet their rigid standards. They figure, I'll play fair with others and others should play fair with me. These folks sincerely wish the world were just, but it's actually in their best interest that it doesn't work that way. Because their ideas of justice don't work. They are motivated to act directly from their instincts, their identity, as opposed to being nice. For many incarnations, they have been waiting for a time when it's okay to be themselves, and this is it. In this lifetime, their sense of fairness and justice is not an accurate barometer of whether these folks are on track or whether they have a right to be angry with another. In fact, whenever they get on their high horse about injustice or fairness, they are off path. First, their definition of fair has a lot to do with the fact that they sacrifice their needs and desires for others. They constantly violate the boundaries of how much they can give without loss to self. Then, in fairness, they expect others to do the same. These natives are learning to stop violating their own natural limits and to not entice others to go beyond their boundaries. Aries North Node people have become resentful if they think something isn't fair. If they feel resentment, it's a signal to pull back and recharge. It also signals a need to express their emotions. I seem to be feeling resentful, so I'm going to take some time for myself and work it out. Honest expression validates and strengthens their sense of identity. It also gives the other person a chance to become aware of Aries North Node's needs and boundaries. From the other person's response, the native has a clearer idea of who he is dealing with. If the other person says, Did I say something that offended you? Aries North Node has the opportunity to work it out on the spot. He cannot expect others to be as sensitive as he is, since others have had different past life experiences. But once he openly expresses himself, he can tell from the other's response how much self-assertion will be necessary before the other person hears him and honors his needs. Aries North Node people are learning to be assertive in a constructive way that promotes fairness through clear self-expression. For example, I had an Aries North Node client who was in the process of purchasing, through rather large monthly payments, some real estate from a friend of hers. One day, the friend approached her with a need for money from an unexpected problem, and my client immediately gave her the money. The instinctive Aries North Node desire to help and share. She assumed the other person would either repay it or deduct the amount from her next payment. However, her friend never repaid or acknowledged that money in any way. My client felt hurt and resentful but never brought the matter up. Naturally, she emotionally distanced herself from her one time friend. This type of incident seems to occur frequently in Aries North Node people's lives. As a consequence, they feel let down by others. From a broader point of view, this is life's way of teaching these folks to assert themselves. They need to take responsibility for themselves in their interactions with others. In the example, when the friend approached her, my client could have said, "Sure, I'll just take the amount off my next payment," or "I could take a third off on the next three payments," or "what will work out for you." In this way, she would have satisfied her need to share and take care of her needs in direct, honest, fair way. Aries North Node people truly do love to give. It's their nature. But their motive needs to be love, not creating codependence. Their giving must be pure, without an expectation of result, in order for them to be free of disappointment in their relationships. If they find they are giving in an imbalanced way, they can openly bargain with their partner so that both people's needs are equitably met. It's when they expect others to reciprocate without letting them know exactly what they expect that they go off track. They need to give their silent expectations a voice. It's their job to be sure things are fair by asserting themselves and letting others know what they expect in return for their giving. If they do this, they will feel happy because they were the ones who ensured that fairness came about. This builds self-confidence, and rather than being displeased with others, they will be pleased with themselves. Since they are the ones who know about fairness, they can teach others by openly stating their standards. Then they are not only giving to the other person but also sharing their knowledge of how to give and take in relationships. These folks can access the fresh energy that is emerging in this lifetime through honest assertion, not by waiting and reacting to expectations of others, but by getting in touch with and expressing the impulses of their own being. Even though their sensitivity to others is strong, they must continue to build a sense of their own identity. Through practicing self-sufficiency, a new confidence will emerge, empowering them to relate to others in healthy, innovative ways. Relationships, dependence. Dependence on harmony with others, especially the marriage partner, is the primary issue for Aries North Node people in this lifetime. Actually, the problem goes beyond dependence. It may involve total identification with the partner and sometimes with all significant others. Aries North Nodes often become so identified with their partners that they are overwhelmed by the other person's emotions. When the other person feels distraught, their first reaction is to rush to say whatever is necessary to restore harmony so that they, Aries North Node, can feel better. They handle the partner as an extension of themselves, and then they lose patience trying to get the other person to straighten up and be harmonious so that they can feel comfortable with themselves again. But their sense of urgency generally makes things worse. These folks need to notice that when they try to regain their own inner harmony by manipulating their partner, it doesn't work. What does work when they feel a lack of harmony from their partner is to politely excuse themselves and spend some time alone. Aries North Node needs to respect others enough to allow them to experience whatever they are feeling and to work through it on their own. Unless they want or they ask for help, this is how people reach a deeper level of self-awareness. Additionally, these natives can gain a better understanding of what is happening with their partner when they get a little distance. This is why it is crucial for them to have their own space surrounded by their own personal possessions to reinforce their sense of identity. They need a private place to go when they become over-identified with the partner, a place where they can be alone. Boundaries. These folks can never experience inner tranquility as long as they refuse to acknowledge their own boundaries and their partners and allow another person to be their center. For example, I had an Aries North Node client who came to me hoping to resolve marriage difficulties. He had been married for 23 years, had a great deal of money, and his partners had always been to appease his pattern had always been to appease his wife's moods by buying her things. They traveled extensively, anything to keep her happy, because when she was happy, he was happy. But it was all manipulation on his part, so he could remain undisturbed and have a sense of solidity, because he had placed her at his center. Over the years, she became increasingly difficult to please, and eventually nothing could satisfy her. She became verbally abusive to the other family members as a way of generating a sense of her own substance and individual personhood. The destructiveness accelerated until the negative energy even made her unhappy. My client was beside himself. Nothing he could do would keep his partner happy and his own center undisturbed. This is a lesson Aries North Node people are learning. Even under ideal conditions, it is impossible to remain peaceful when someone else rests in your center. None of us really knows what can keep another person happy, and we rob them of the challenge of discovering and fulfilling themselves if we take on that responsibility. If my client had not distracted his wife from her moments of unhappiness so that he could stay calm, she would have had the opportunity to learn to handle her own moods. This might have averted her need to become destructive as a means of finally being in charge of her own inner state of being. Aries North Node people are not accustomed to declaring the boundaries of their own identity immediately, as those boundaries arise within them. They still feel a need to support their partner even if it goes against their own best interests. So if their partner disagrees with something they want to do, they may say, "Okay, I won't do it," but decide they are going to do it anyway. By not honestly standing up for themselves, they reinforce the unhealthy dependence within the relationship. Some of these kinds of problems stem from the tremendous love and compassion that these folks are born with. They have spent so many past lifetimes developing sensitivity that now it is not unusual for them to feel more compassionate toward another person or situation that their partner does. Sometimes the partner may not want to deal with a certain problem, and the Aries North Node says, "Okay, we won't," in order to avoid disharmony. Then he starts to feel resentful, yet helpless to correct the situation. His need to support others can lead him to go behind his partner's back, lend a helping hand, but then his partner feels a breach of trust, which damages the relationship, and the Aries North Node people or the person feels unsupported in being who he really is. Resolution for this problem can come through both parties expanding their idea of we to become more flexible, sometimes as a team and sometimes as two separate individuals. In the above situation, Aries North Node should communicate what he is experiencing, which takes a lot of courage. For example, "Okay, I hear that you feel resistance to supporting this situation, and I want to put energy into it, so I will do this independently." When the recognition of a different preference arises, these folks need to risk saying, "I don't feel the way about it," or "I don't feel the same way about it." The problem isn't in doing what they feel is correct, the problem is in lying about it. Choosing a partner. In seeking a mate or any other close connection, Aries North Node people are subconsciously seeking a relationship in which they can lose themselves. They wish to become so submerged in the other person that they are totally safe. It's the old half plus half equal one whole theory, but it doesn't work for these people. Rather, they are here to learn that one whole plus one whole equal a healthy team. However, until they become aware, they will attempt to find someone with whom they can identify, and then they pour all their love and support into reinforcing that other person. But when they seek a partner from this position, it never works out. Often they are attracted to people who abuse them or let them down. In fact, just the opposite approach is scheduled to work for these folks. They need to stop focusing on others and concentrate on themselves instead. As they begin to focus on being themselves, allowing their own true, unique identity to emerge and going in their own individual direction, their energy will attract the right person, someone who will appreciate and value them. Aries North Node people are so accustomed to the joys of partnership from past lives that they subconsciously associate being happy with being in a relationship that is mutually joyfully symbiotic. They came into this lifetime wanting to do everything with their partner all the time. They are basically cheerful people, but an energy drain is taking place beneath the surface of the relationship that is based on feelings of dependence. Aries North Node's need for attention and to be included as part of the other person's identity are a bottomless pit. Subconsciously, these folks believe they cannot survive without the energy of others, so they tend to cultivate a mutual dependence with stronger people around them. They take time and energy away from their own goals to help the partner reach hers. They give of their understanding, being more sensitive to others' needs than to their own. In this way, they create a dependence, becoming an integral part of what the other person needs to survive. Then, Aries North Node people become resentful of their partners for interfering with their independence and blame them when they don't reach their goals, even though the Aries North Nodes created the unhealthy dependence. They think it's love. Indeed, these folks are very loving and cooperative, but a lot of their self-sacrifice is subconscious manipulation. Love never expects anything in return for giving, and resentment is a byproduct of expecting something and not getting it. Aries North Node people must learn to be honest with themselves and others about how much they are willing to give and what they expect in return. Being part of a team means making sure they are also supported. Learning independence. Because these folks are learning the lesson of not depending on others, they subconsciously attract people who are undependable. Although this gives them the opportunity to learn to depend on themselves, the process can be quite painful. Aries North Node people are often so intent on influencing the relationship in ways that result in the complete integration of two people that they don't fully notice the partner's identity. They see the other person only in terms of what it takes to please him or her. They don't generally stop to notice who the other person is on a deeper level in terms of his or her true inner identity. Worse yet, because they are looking for someone to fill their center so they can feel complete, they assume that others also lack a sense of self and are looking for a partner in order to gain a sense of completion. Thus, they enter relationships with some very naive and inaccurate premises. Operating with flawed ideas of who the other person is and what he or she wants, Aries North Node people often become deeply emotionally invested and then end up confused when the other person leaves or lets them down. Many other people do have a sense of their own center, and many independent types will rebel against the stifling aspect of Aries North Node, wanting to be connected at every moment, in consciousness if not physically. Aries North Node people tend to gravitate to people who are selfish and require a great deal of personal attention. They attract types of people who expect total attention and accept their energy without giving back on equal basis. Through indiscriminate giving, Aries North Node may also inadvertently cause an initially sensitive partner to become insensitive. Generally, these folks are better off around people who show some sensitivity in return. They are more comfortable around people with whom they don't have to clash energy. They have a tendency to allow the other person to completely submerge them. So they need to be with someone who encourages them to be themselves and who won't abuse their loving, giving nature. Of course, letting people know where they stand helps others to be sensitive in return. Indirect approaches, avoiding conflicts. Aries North Node people sometimes are so attached to peace and harmony that they inadvertently damage their relationships by avoiding all conflict. They may start out by saying, "Okay, I'm going to be a team player," and then foresee a conflict. Rather than deal with it when it comes along, they postpone it until it becomes a major dispute. Their challenge is to be vigilant in consistently standing their ground and verbalizing their impulses right away. For example, if an idea excites them, they need to say, "I want to do this," rather than lie about it or downplay it. What stops them is their fear that they are coming from a different point of view or have a different objective from that of their partner. They feel threatened because when they don't deal with it instantly, they magnify the difference in their mind, telling themselves that it is so vast it can never be resolved. Actually, if Aries North Node people honestly reveal where they stand right from the start, these differences become opportunities to connect more deeply with their partner. Often these folks postpone telling the truth for fear of widening an existing difference of opinion. If they want to do something and know their partner will object, they may try to do it without the other person knowing. Then, when the other person finds out, the difference of opinion remains, along with hurt and a breach of trust. By not discussing the situation, they have deprived their partner of the opportunity to be generous and support them in doing something for their own growth. Now, a discussion may pacify the situation, but there will be a lot of work to do to repair the damage to the relationship. For example, I had an Aries North Node client who was an airline pilot. As a side business, he delivered airplanes, which he greatly enjoyed. He wanted to deliver an airplane to Turkey, but his wife wanted him to keep other family commitments. He knew she didn't want him to go on a particular trip, but he felt he needed to do it. So he began making plans for the delivery without discussing it with her. Then, when the time came, he said, "Well, I'm going to go take this trip." And his wife said, "But we talked about this and you said you wouldn't go." Then he was faced with the fact that he had lied to her. Now, in order to go, he would have had to bring her into agreement and undo the hurt of the lie. By the time it reached this point, he gave up and didn't go. This is how these folks often lose the opportunity to do what they want because they know that solving the communication problem with their partner is more important than what they want to do. It brings relationship back into sync, but they are left feeling resentful because once again they have sacrificed their own desires to keep the peace. This is why they must be willing to come clean from the beginning and let their partner see only what they want to do, but why it is important to them. They need to sit down with their partner and discuss their own desires and fears. In the example, my client could have said to the wife, "There is something I want to share with you. It's something that's very important to me, and my concern is that you're not going to realize how important it is. I'm concerned that you won't support me, and then I won't do it." This may seem manipulative, but it's really an honest voicing of concerns. Once acknowledged, the fears dissolve. Then my client could have communicated his desired direction and motive. "I want to deliver an airplane to a buyer in Turkey. It's important to me because I want to build my own business and establish an independent income. It's something that will give me personal satisfaction and build my confidence." Once the partner sees that the direction Aries North Node wants to take has a larger outcome, she has the opportunity to demonstrate love by supporting him. If the partner still doesn't support his independent direction, Aries North Node should reevaluate whether the partnership is truly allowing for both people's individual growth. Postponing decisions. Aries North Node people habitually put the other person first and neglect feeding their own life force the energy it needs to grow stronger. When they give up the direction of their own life, they become weak on all levels. They need their partner's energy to survive. They are learning the necessity of participating in activities that excite them as an individual. Out of a desire to be fair, these folks often postpone making decisions for themselves until they have consulted their partner. Unfortunately, when they look at the situation from other person's point of view, they may not be true to their own impulses for fear of hurting the other person. When in doubt, they can ask themselves, "Are my actions making me feel good about myself?" If so, their best bet is to first to verbalize what they want and then ask the other person what he or she would like. It's a simple technique, yet one that supports them in being themselves in a way that is also fair to their partner. For example, an Aries North Node person may be driving home from work and sees a mark advertising the new release of Gone with the Wind. Instantly, her sense of excitement says, "Yes, I want to see that movie with Tom." Normally, she would go home and say, "Hi Tom, do you have any plans for tonight?" And her husband might respond, "Gosh, I'm exhausted. I thought we would just stay home, watch Monday Night Football, and take something out of the freezer for dinner." Being accustomed to diplomacy, tact, and manipulation, she would probably respond indirectly, "I'll bet it would make you feel a lot better to go to a movie tonight and just get out of the house. I don't want to go out, and you know how much I like Monday Night Football." "I know, Tom, but we haven't been out together in such a long time." At that point, her husband, feeling manipulated, would probably explode and insist on staying home. She would storm off, feeling resentful and thinking, "We never do what I want. We always have to do what he wants." Yet the fact is, she never even mentioned the movie. A better approach is for the Aries North Node person to mention her preference first in a direct way, and then ask the other person what he had in mind. She could have said, "Hi Tom, on the way home I noticed they're showing a new release of Gone with the Wind at the theatre. I got so excited. I would just love for us to go see it tonight. Did you have any plans?" He would have said, "Gosh, I'm exhausted. I hope we could stay home and watch the Monday Night Football." Aries North Nodes are experts at compromise. Once both positions are on the table, they can see a solution that will be fair to both sides. "Well, I can see that you are tired, and the only night for Monday Night Football is the Monday night. So why don't we stay home tonight and then tomorrow night we'll go out and see the movie?" Fear of commitment. Owing to past lives of feeling manipulated and abused in relationships in this lifetime, Aries North Node people are afraid of relationships and marriage, recognizing that they have a tendency to give too much and lose themselves. So although they are very attracted to relationships, part of them holds back, preferring the single life to taking the risk of once again losing independence. Although in many ways they are natural marriage partners, they may subconsciously sabotage close relationships before they reach the stage of making a commitment. Or they may convince themselves that as much as they long for a partner, they just haven't found the right person. There are various modern day solutions to their hesitancy: being in a monogamous relationship and maintaining separate residences, or living with their partner without a formal commitment. Marriage can work if they have first made an unconscious decision to be faithful to themselves and their own integrity. Ultimately, it's the same challenge: first developing their own independent identity and then learning how to relate with their partner in interdependent and cooperative ways. Aries North Node people tend to think they need permission from their partner before it's okay for them to take independent action. They start checking in with the partner in a very childlike way, indulging in extravagant manipulations and justifications to obtain approval and support. They give away their power to their partner and then feel they have to become adversarial to be themselves, or they may simply give up on what they wanted to do. In this lifetime, it works better for them to approach other people on an adult level. This means letting their partner know their intentions and plans with the energy of leadership, courage, and excitement, without letting themselves or the other person know how inwardly fragile they feel. If their partner has reservations, they can explain that for their own self discovery and personal growth, they need to go ahead with their decision. At which point, the partner will adapt and go along, or else they can begin negotiations for both people and how they can win. For their primary relationship to be successful, Aries North Node people are learning the value of doing things by themselves and pursuing activities that bring a sense of personal satisfaction. Then they won't need to share energy with just one other person in order to be happy. They can expand and interact with many different people while developing and strengthening their own identity. Once they have developed their own sense of independence, they can really connect with and enjoy their primary partner because each individual has something to offer. Because their battery has been charged outside the relationship, they have more energy to exchange within the relationship. But Aries North Node people aren't always clear about what they want to do. It can be more difficult for them to make up their minds than for many of the other nodal groups. These folks are always trying to discern what others want, what they want, and what would be fair in any situation. Naturally, weighing all these considerations takes time. If Aries North nodes allow themselves to be pressured into making a hasty decision, they are generally unhappy with the results. These folks cannot allow themselves to be stampeded. When an emotional component is introduced into the situation, they lose clarity and become vulnerable to going down with something that may not be in their best interest. They are learning not to make any decisions or agree to anything under emotional pressure. When they feel this kind of energy in a situation, the best thing is to say, I am not going to make this decision under emotional pressure. That will give them time to regain balance and clarity. Or they could say, it's going to take me some time to weigh what's been said. Everything sounds valid to me, but I need some time for it to settle in. I'd like to continue this at a later date. Especially in personal relationships, they need to speak honestly and directly. There's emotional pressure here. That's not the way I'm going to decide. Their feedback gives the other person the opportunity to become aware of what they are doing. It also validates one of the facets of the Aries North Node's person's destiny: sensitivity to others and awareness of what is going on in the relationships. Being upfront with their identity in this way helps Aries North Nodes to gain strength and self confidence. Selfishness. In this culture, selfishness is considered a negative quality. However, Aries North Node people have overdone the quality of selflessness in past lives, so now they must consciously practice selfishness just to get back to center. The irony is that when they take action that they consider selfish, trusting themselves and acting on their initial impulse to do what makes them feel happy and strong, later they find that it was actually the best decision for everyone involved. It can be tough for these folks to put themselves first. For example, if they are at a party and not feeling well, it takes a lot of courage for them to say, I need to leave, or can you take me home? They are thinking, if I leave, what will others think? Do they need me to be here to make it easier for them? They become so fixated on others that sometimes their bodies have to really overreact to force them to pay attention to themselves. When Aries North Node people acknowledge their feelings and express their impulses without having to be rational, it works for everyone. After all, no one can see the bigger picture. In the example, it could be that their need to go home will take the other person out of a situation that, had they stayed, would have resulted in a serious problem that no one could have foreseen. Aries North Node's people's honest, impulsive responses automatically bring justice to the circumstances around them. For example, they may feel uncomfortable in a situation and say, for some reason I feel upset. I don't know what it is. Then the other person may say, gosh, I bet when I mentioned dash, it triggered that upset. That really wasn't fair. When Aries North Node communicates in a non confrontational way, it gives others a chance to recognize what they are doing and alter their behavior. Goals, self discovery. The joy of self discovery is one of the greatest highs for Aries North Node people in this lifetime. Their best technique for self discovery is the courage to follow their impulses. It may seem illogical, but this approach will manifest vitality in their lives. Their style may resemble that of Aries Ram, sometimes butting their heads, taking chances, and getting hurt. But that's how they find out who they are. The path of self discovery involves taking risks and experiencing the different facets of themselves rather than results. If self discovery is their conscious underlying motive behind any action, they will never lose. Because whatever happens will reveal more about who they are. Self reflection. When these folks see themselves through the eyes of others, they can see who others think they are or who others want them to be, but it isn't really them. They have to be themselves no matter how others perceive them, and they aren't going to find out who they are until they begin expressing their inner impulses and letting people know what's really going on with them. Seeing themselves through others' eyes equals how to lose for Aries North Node. It dilutes their confidence in making decisions based on their own nature. As they begin seeing themselves through their own eyes, they can start doing the things that please them, increase their energy, and bolster themselves so that they feel confident and nourished. They are learning that their behavior doesn't always have to be logical and that they don't have to justify themselves and their decisions. They are also learning to shift focus from being sensitive to the ebbs and flows of others' needs and emotions to being sensitive to the ebbs and flows within themselves. As they develop this skill and begin to live in a way that is fair to self, they find the sense of justice they have been seeking. Only by respecting and honoring themselves can they expect others to treat them fairly. They respect themselves when they let others know their needs and expectations in relationships. When they are honest about who they are and what they expect, they will attract people who resonate with their values and can give back to them what they need. Self-love. Aries North Node people are learning to turn their well-developed capacity for love to loving themselves. One of the reasons they postpone letting others see where they stand is that they are insecure. Thus, one of their challenges is to validate and give approval to self. They need to support their sense of self by allowing themselves to be seen. Once they begin to reveal themselves to others, they build trust by seeing that self-revelation actually works. To motivate themselves to take this risk, these folks can review their past experiences and see that the other ways they have tried to balance relationships, which is through compromise or evasion, have not worked. To change the outcome, they need to change their methods for dealing with others in close relationships. In loving self, they are supporting themselves in actualizing their own dreams. When they get to a place of loving themselves enough to really want their ideas to work out, they will realize that honesty is the only way to do it. How am I going to make this idea work? The only way I can do it is by taking out the barrier of dishonesty. Then the energy of the relationship supports them rather than opposes them. In the beginning, their fears make them think they will face opposition, but they have to be willing to walk through that fear for the sake of their idea. Then, because they are not hiding anything, they can focus all their energy in the direction they want to go and even enlist the support of others in putting their plans into action. When Aries North Node people put themselves first, in a natural way, everyone wins. What actions make them feel stronger, happier, more complete, and satisfied? Self love involves making choices that support themselves. They can make a start by asking some basic questions. What is going to help me survive? What will help me further my goals? Which road is best in terms of reducing stress and benefiting my health? Assertiveness. In realizing the goal of constructive assertiveness, Aries North Node people must let go of subconscious attachment to being a nice person, which was their identity in past lives. In order for their new, authentic identity to emerge, they need to express themselves with no preconceived notions of what they ought to do. The idea is to be impulsive and say what first comes to mind. Honest assertiveness will teach them who they are and validate their true identity apart from others' projections. Rather than wait for others, these folks need to allow their own inner impulses to motivate them to take immediate action. As they validate their impulses by acting on them, their impulses will become stronger and more energizing. Aries North Node people are learning another aspect of assertiveness, which is to let others know the boundaries of their identity, to stand up for themselves, and to not allow others to abuse them. They assume that others will be sensitive to them out of love, but this is not always the case. Their job is to learn to be sensitive to themselves and have enough self-love to not allow themselves to be hurt. There is a story of an enlightened master who was traveling through India. He came to a village and noticed that there were no children playing. "Where are all the children?" the master asked. "Master, there is a huge serpent in the woods who comes at night and eats the children," replied one of the villagers. "Please help us." So the master went into the woods. "Serpent, show yourself before me." And because all beings are subject to an enlightened master, the serpent slid out of his hiding place. "Serpent, "It is wrong of you to eat the children of this village. You must never eat another child," admonished the master. The serpent was ashamed and replied, "Yes, master." The enlightened master continued his travels, and 10 years later, he came to the same village and saw children of all ages. But in one corner, he noticed a group of children involved in some intense activity. The master approached and in the center of their circle found the serpent, wounded and nearly dead from their torture. The master chased the children away and said to the serpent, "My friend, how is it that you have let this happen to you?" The serpent replied, "But master, you said I was not to eat the children." The master answered, "Oh, foolish serpent, I told you not to bite. I didn't tell you not to hiss." This is what Aries North Node people are learning, to hiss at the very beginning of abuse in relationships. They need to let others know when their sensitivity has been wounded, or when they feel inequity in giving, or when they need more support. The idea is to let others know before they feel taken advantage of and withdraw from the relationship, either physically or psychologically. If they allow others to abuse them, everyone loses. Trust. Trusting self. A major goal for Aries North Node people is learning to trust themselves and be themselves, to find a healthy way of relating that doesn't trap them into being a support system for other people. In their relationships, the end result won't be love and fairness unless they risk the honesty and integrity of being exactly who they are. It means trusting their intuitive wisdom, that it's coming from such a strong base of love that if they really express that inner spark, it will work out for everyone involved. This takes courage and a willingness to experiment, but when these folks trust enough to risk it, they'll find that it works. Because they are not used to being a leader, they tend to fall back if others initially resist their direction. They think it's an indication that they are off track. Actually, their ideas are unique and innovative, so often the first response from others is resistance. People nearly always resist a new idea because it means change. It's a natural response, and part of being a leader is understanding that. As Aries North Node continue to make a show of confidence and follow their inner impulses, they will find that others will often adapt and go along with their decisions. They are learning to experience the joy of self-discovery. Life is an adventure, and as they view it that way and begin following up their spontaneous impulses and ideas with action, a sense of fullness and happiness begins to grow within them. But they have to make that decision to trust their own instinctive impulses. For example, I had an Aries North Node client who had paid into an Oscar pool at work. She had her own intuition about who was going to win. But then she started talking to other people about their opinions, lost confidence in her choices, and went with someone else's decision. When she lost in the pool, she felt very defeated and wished she had trusted her own instincts instead. These folks need to stop doubting themselves and simply start being themselves. Their challenge is to act on their spontaneous impulses. When they take responsibility for creating their own happiness by actively pursuing a direction that could help them reach their goal, they are led to activities and/or people that answer their needs. After taking one step, the right idea about what action to take next always seems to come to them. For example, I had an Aries North Node client who had been yearning for an appropriate romantic partner for years. However, scarcity of any potential partners was interspersed with a few disastrous relationships. Unhappiness and depression plagued her until she had to turn to antidepressants for relief. Finally, she let go of her fantasy of finding Prince Charming and began pursuing activities that gave her a feeling of confidence and made her happy. She started feeling better as she became more actively involved in things. Jogging was a source of enjoyment for her, but she didn't want to begin a routine all by herself in the dark, early morning hours that were best for her schedule. Rather than postpone jogging until she met someone who had a similar schedule, she took the initiative and placed an ad for a morning jogging partner in the local paper. 4 people responded. She began running with them, and one turned out to be the Prince Charming. But this only came about when she ceased looking to others for fulfillment and began filling her needs in a direct and logical way. Trusting negative emotions. Aries North Node people always want to pretend that everything is fine. They feel guilty about having so-called negative emotions. Owing to a lack of past life experience, being in touch with their individuality, they aren't always aware of their emotional responses at the time they are happening. Sometimes they experience an emotion and do not recognize it until a few weeks later when they think back and realize, I was really angry. A friend may say, how was the month of January for you? And they'll say, now that you mention it, I felt really lonely and depressed. But during January, if someone had asked how they felt, they would have responded, just fine. So it is to their advantage to give themselves time out on a regular basis to get in touch with what's going on inside. When they are not aware of their emotions, they often react to things in an irrational way that surprises them. When this happens, their tendency is to go off by themselves, re-experience the emotion, and think about it so they can be more rational. This works well, especially if they can let the other person know. For some reason, I feel upset, but I'm not sure why. In this way, they are honestly acknowledging their feelings without taking it out on the other person. Even if they do explode, afterwards they can say, for some reason I got upset. I'm not sure why, but I'll think about it and get back to you. Even after the fact, it's a helpful process. Sometimes these folks are cruel and hurtful, and they feel good doing it. They are angry. There have been so many past incarnations when they were too nice at their own expense, so now out of the blue they lash out at someone who's close to them, someone whose love they can count on anyway. They unleash their anger and then apologize. Subconsciously, they want to see if these people will love them no matter what, as they have so often accepted others, so they can better accept themselves. In this lifetime, Aries North Node people are learning to integrate negative emotions like anger, resentment, and the like. This energy is healthy for them to express. It's their power that they suppressed in past lives to get along with others, and now these feelings demand attention. These so-called negative emotions are their strength, but in a coarse, unrefined form. Rage, anger, and the like are all part of the yang energy, the potent, assertive leadership energy, the masculine part of themselves that has been so heavily repressed. Now, Aries North Node people must tap back into this energy and integrate it with the gentle, sensitive energy they have developed so well in the past incarnations. This will facilitate the healthy expression of their warrior nature. An excellent technique to help them with this process is a regular program of physical exercise. Taking a martial arts class would be perfect for releasing and integrating this intense energy. And if that energy is being released consistently and constructively, it won't come out inappropriately. These folks need hard physical exercise like aerobics, boxing, racquetball, tennis, activities that give expression to their warrior nature, and they'll feel great about doing it. Aries North Node people have an aversion to competition, but actually competition is very good for them. They get nervous watching others compete, but when they themselves compete, it brings out the best in them and they handle it beautifully. It strengthens and validates what has been suppressed in past lives. They may fear losing, but if they review their past experience, they are always able to shake it off, and then they are glad that the other person won. If they do win, they feel good and they handle winning in a way that's nice. So they win either way as long as they go in wanting to win. For these folks to enjoy competition, they must feel that there is something worth competing for. They also can build strength by competing against themselves. Instead of giving up after 5 miles, they should try to go farther. They need to do things that reveal how strong and capable they are. Also, they may see other people doing things, and that gives them the impetus to try something new. In this sense, they are comparing themselves to others in a positive way that encourages their own growth. Claiming one's power. Aries North Node people are learning to claim their own power and to stand in their power when relating to others. They are coming into their own. Sometimes they get scared when they see how powerful they can be when they are present in their own bodies and fully grounded in their own identity. These natives still feel shy and have a fear of expressing themselves. When they don't stand in their own power, often it is because their minds are making them afraid of being wrong. Being wrong is not the problem for these folks. They are afraid that if they are wrong, their power is at risk of being invalidated. But if they look back on experiences when they have put themselves on the line and been wrong, they have still felt validated because they took a stand and discovered something new about themselves. Being present in their power and taking a stand are more important for them than the outcome. They must follow their impulses and take action. That is what makes the difference in feeling good about themselves. Then they are owning their power and they feel good about their life because they are in charge. When these folks verbalize their needs and follow through on their ideas, they feel exhilarated. Leadership. Aries North Node people have had many past lives supporting others and being followers. In this incarnation, they are to lead, first themselves and then others, so it is healthy for the warrior within them to emerge. From a very early age, these folks tend to find gratification working in unusual areas, doing jobs that others usually don't do. This can lead to a position where they are doing harder work, but in the process of becoming really good at it, they gain a lot in terms of personal growth and development. They hesitate to enter jobs in which they are just another number, regardless of material benefits, because it's so important to them to be an individual. When they analyze things, they have a slightly different point of view than most people and enjoy being different in every regard. One of the primary perks of leadership for Aries North Node people is that they enjoy using their individuality to benefit others. If they are the leader, they can control the work atmosphere and set a positive mood for those around them. Owning to so many past incarnations being the support person for others, these folks are born knowing how to be supportive. They're sensitive and know what other people need to be happy. Since we all subconsciously project that everyone else is like us, these folks assume that others also know about support. So when they begin to lead, they don't understand why others don't support them properly. After all, they are providing the leadership, the idea, the environment, and even the good mood. The reason others don't respond with support is that they don't have a clue about how to be good support people. Therefore, when they are acting as leaders, Aries North Node people must consciously focus on what they need from others to feel supported. Rather than silently expect that others will be sensitive to their needs, they need to communicate directly and objectively what they want. Rather than tell others what they are doing wrong or how they are a disappointment, Aries North Nodes must positively point the way, which gives others the energy to rise to the occasion. In this way, they allow others to grow and learn how to be supportive. One of Aries North Node's jobs in this lifetime is to teach other people, primarily their partners, how to love and how to be sensitive to their identity of another person. They are learning to creatively teach others how to be supportive rather than resenting them for not knowing how. A support person has to be conscious of the other person all the time. It takes effort, but that's what makes people feel supported. This is some of the knowledge that Aries North Node people are uniquely equipped to impart. By being themselves, they teach others how to be supportive through love and compassion. Interdependence. Aries North Node people tend to be the classic codependent types. They have a history of depending on others to fill their needs and then feeling that people have let them down. In this incarnation, they want to develop their independent self without closing themselves off to the benefits of primary relationship. To gain success, they need to view their relationships in terms of interdependence, whereby two people assist each other in developing their own independent strengths, encouraging each other in their capacity to fend for themselves, then complete within themselves. They can have separate adventures appropriate to each other's or each one's unique identity, and to different worlds of experience to share with each other. A healthy relationship is one in which two people bolster each other's identities as separate individuals while working toward a common goal. Rather than being caught up in the energy of relationship dynamic, the idea is for each to consciously remain in his or her own power while participating with the partner. These folks have had many past incarnations supporting others with no thought for themselves, so they tend to discount their instinct that tells them when they are giving beyond the point of balance, which drains their life force. They don't usually notice the energy loss as long as the other person is there. But when they are alone, they feel drained. In this lifetime, they are learning to reattune themselves and allow their internal sense of moderation to regulate their giving. The process of sharing energy needs to be mutually regenerative. After all, the supply of golden eggs one has to give others depends on the goose being alive and healthy. In past lives, these people gave others all their golden eggs and then started giving away the goose. Now they are learning to keep the goose strong and well so they can give away the golden eggs without depleting the source. In one-on-one relationships, avoiding codependence means not seeking to fill in when the partner has a need, but rather to encourage her in knowing that number 1, she has plenty of talent and energy to handle things on her own, and number 2, there are others she can work with to get support. For example, the partner may want to have her paintings displayed in local galleries. Rather than pitching in and calling the galleries, Aries North Node could suggest that she ask a friend to help or hire someone or get an agent. This leaves Aries North Node free to pursue his own interests. The transition from codependence to interdependence is a 3-stage process. First is the codependent stage. Two people totally tuned into each other and compensating for each other's weaknesses so that the team can survive. Number 2 is the independent stage. Each person being completely self-reliant, each person taking full responsibility for his or her own projects, money, and day-to-day survival. Number 3, interdependent stage. One person, independent and self-sufficient in his or her own right, uniting with another independent, strong individual to form a mutually supportive relationship and work towards shared goals. When Aries North Node people reach the stage of personal growth where they are ready for interdependent relationships, they really start to shine. Alright, so this is where the information of the North Node in Aries or the North Node in the first house comes to an end, and now I'm going to share with you a song that has been shared by the author of this book, and this song is called Going Through the Judgment Day. The message of this song is meant to encourage Aries North Node people to shift from codependent tendencies towards reliance on their own impulses, which are firmly grounded in love, to lead them in the right direction. So the lyrics is as follows. You can read all the books that ever have been written. You can ask of those around you to show you the way. You can study the mysteries a long time hidden, but you're the only one who can take you through the judgment day. And you can't rely on anyone else for glory. Don't depend on the outside to show you the way. Put away the books, go beyond the brain. Trust the light within to guide you through the pain. And you're the only one who could ever know what it takes to make you whole. And it's the light within you that will guide you through the judgment day. Alright, my love. So this is what I have for you. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this, and stay tuned for all the North Node videos that are coming up after this, which is from Taurus to Pisces. Okay, all the signs in between that as well. And make sure that you like this video so that this can circulate on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. If you like my content, you can check out my content. All the content is also in my description box below, which is on my Patreon, where I teach you spell work, magic. I also share pick a card readings on my Patreon, so you can check that out if you're interested. And yeah, please do support my videos if you enjoy them. Alright, thank you so much, my love, and peace.